Good morning. Well, you're all alive. That's great. What a privilege it is for me to be here and to stand in this auditorium. I consider it a distinct honor to be invited to speak at Moody. My friend Josephine McCarthy asked me 2 years ago to do this, and I have looked forward to it for 2 years. First of all, I must confess I love Chicago. I am without any question a full-fledged city slicker. I absolutely come to life when there's concrete around. Now, most people can do that with a tree, but not me. I love the freeways. That's one reason I love being in Los Angeles. I love to get on those freeways and take off to LA and see a good play or go to the symphony. So I literally come to life when I see a concrete block. Now, I want you to know, in addition to that, I was up at 2:30 looking out the 23rd floor. I was staying on that floor. I wasn't standing in a hallway in my gown, I must confess. Looking out my bedroom window at this gorgeous city. If you have not looked at it at 2:30 in the morning, do that tomorrow. It is just beautiful. The twinkling lights, the river, all those little toy trucks and cars down there moving around. And I really consider it a pleasure to be here. I've looked forward to it for a long time. This morning I want to talk to us about celebrating life, what that means. This afternoon I'll talk about celebrating relationships with one another, human relationships, and then later, to close out our time together, I want to talk about what it means to celebrate God. I love to celebrate. I am the last of the big-time party givers and party goers. I will follow a balloon anywhere. I grew up in a celebrative family. I grew up with a maternal grandmother who absolutely thought a day was wasted unless we at some point laughed our heads off. So I grew up in a laughing family. My two brothers are laughers. They love life. I grew up with my parents like that, and so I truly enjoy having a good time. It's very important to me, and I hope that it is to you. However, life is hard, is it not? It's tough. The opening sentence of Scott Peck's wonderful book, The Road Less Traveled. Does anybody know the opening sentence? Life is difficult. I'll go one step further. Life is the pits. Dr. Larry Crabb, in his excellent work, Inside Out, says in the premise, there is something wrong with everything. We laugh because we know it's the truth. There is something wrong with everything. And the more mature we get, the more we realize there is more wrong with everything than we ever thought. And life is difficult. And last week or the week before, I had the pleasure of hearing Tim Hansel speak, a wonderful man, fantastic author, who's been in pain 15 years from a horrible fall that he experienced and has written such joyful books. He said, pain is inevitable, but misery is optional. So I am here today to talk about, don't choose misery, choose celebration. Now, as I said, I love to celebrate. I hope that you are like that. I will celebrate virtually anything. The drop of a hat. I mean, people can say to me, you know, I'm moving to a new town, I have a new job. I'll say, great, let's celebrate. I'll take you to lunch. I'm going to have a baby. Great. Oh, I'm so thrilled for you. Come on, I'll take you to dinner. Or they say to me, you know, I got a raise. I said, why don't you take me to dinner? You got the raise. But, you know, just love life and love having a good time. One of my most vivid recollections of a celebration that I had was when I turned 49. Now, I want to tell you my age. I am 56, and I like to tell people that because I don't want you sitting there wondering, is that her real hair? You know, what does she hang on the bedpost at night? I mean, is that really, you know, her real teeth and everything? Everything is real but the hair. It's blonde by fake. But anyway, I want you to know, at the age of 56, I look back on the fondest celebration of a birthday I ever had. Now, my birthday is September the 8th, in case you want to make a note and send me a card. And my friends got together and they said, Lucy, we want to do something fun for your birthday. And I said, lay it on me. What do you want to do? They said, okay, we would like to take you to dinner. We would like you to be our guest from noon on. Loving a party? I said, fine, that's great. So happened I was busy on the 8th, and they said, what about the 12th? That was a Saturday nearest the date of the 8th, and I said, fine. They said, we will pick you up at noon, and you will be our guest for the day. Couldn't wait. I was so excited. They said, we want you to dress comfortably, just wear a tank top and shorts. They're all blind, you understand. Just dress comfortably, Lucy, and we will be there at noon, and we're going to pick you up, and we're going to take you for the afternoon with us. I said, wonderful. Well, looking in the mirror, I decided to wear a sweatshirt and jeans, and I put on my clothes. They said, bring something decent to change into for the evening meal, so I packed up all my stuff, you know, heels and hose and everything, so I could look great for a change, their words. And we will get you at noon. So at noon, I'm standing at my door or standing in my living room waiting for their arrival. I was so thrilled. I thought, what are these girls up to? There were 4 or 5 of them. And they didn't tell me anything about it. And my front window overlooks, I have a rather large window, looks a schoolyard, and the street is out there. In fact, I tell people I live in the shadow of Mickey Mouse because I live right near Disneyland, and I can see the fireworks out my window in the summer nights at 9:30, and I know I should be in bed because the bed rocks, you know. I think I've got to be in bed. So I'm standing there at this picture window looking out, and this is the truth, ladies. Pulling up in front of my house at noon was this 1960 hearse. It was a long silver job with little gray windows and a black vinyl top. And my first thought upon looking out at this was, who died? Not knowing it was indeed myself, and the door opened to the hearse, and I saw this friend of mine, one of whom had invited me to this gathering, get out of the hearse, and she had on a little derby cocked on the side of her head. You know, she came up the door, and I heard this, and I thought, no. No, they're not coming for me. And since I'm the only one who lives there, I went to the door, you see. Opened the door, and Sharon said, hey, Luce, we're ready. Let's go. And I go, in that? And she said, yeah, this is your home away from home for the afternoon. I thought, hot dog. This is going to be fun. I walked out. And now by this time, the neighbors were wondering who died. And, you know, they're all at the windows looking out. And I walked out to this hearse. We named it Patty for Patty Hearse. I walked out to Patty, and I could not believe my eyes. It was the most interesting thing I've ever seen. Now, have any of you ever been in a hearse? Well, there's a hand or two. I want to tell you how to get in one, since someday you will, and you will need to know how to get in Patty Hearse. When the body is put into the back of the hearse, the doors do not open like normal doors. The side lifts, kind of goes, then it clicks in, and then the body lies there resting. So they lifted the side, and in this hearse, let me tell you what there was. There was quilts, beach towels, top hats. There was streamers, confetti, brownies, sandwiches, coffee, music. I thought, what a way to go. My kind of thing. This is it. And this music was just wonderful. Now let me at this point make a public confession. Music is my passion. I love hearing Suzanne sing. I love these great choruses of the faith. I grew up with classical music, Brahms, Beethoven, Mozart, Bach. My older brother was considering being a classical pianist. I sang with the opera for a number of years. I love all the black, get-down soul singers. I love that. I love soft rock music. I love jazz. I love everything but, hold on to your hats, country western. Now, I confess that because I am Texan by birth, and generally I'm run out on a rail for that confession. But let me tell you why, and perhaps you will agree. Country western music is the book of Job revisited. Isn't it? Think about that. Every bad thing that can happen, happens. You know, the crops die, and the kids leave, and the cattle run off, and everything bad. And I think, who needs it? You know. I just don't like country western. Picked a fine time to leave me, Lucille, and I think. So I think, give me a good dose of opera any day, you know. And I don't mean grand old. I mean regular opera. Well, this little jazz music, was, you know, playing there in the car, and I thought, I'm going to love this, baby. I am going to love this. So I got in, and we took off in Patty Hearst. I mean, we careened onto and off of the LA freeways. I mean, we would open those windows and look out. We would pull those curtains back, and we'd go, we'd pass these cars, and these people in the cars, they'd go, you know, they just, what was that? You know, the dead come to life. We're just having the best time, and finally we thought, well, we'll go to the LA Arboretum. Now, the LA Arboretum is a marvelous place where they crossbreed certain types of plants and make hybrids, and it's horticulturally just beautiful. And we pulled in, and there was a just married car, so we parked next to it, you know. I thought, sometimes you can't tell the difference, you know, so. And we got out, and the wedding party was walking around, and we were jazzing around, having the best time, you know, just enjoying. I thought, this is the best way to get old I can think of. You know, I'm already in the hearse, my gosh. Come back to the hearse, we get back in, we did all sorts of things. You know, we finally decided it was time to dress for dinner, so we pulled up in front of Denny's to change clothes. Do you have Denny's here? Well, you know, a hearse in front of Denny's is not good advertisement. You know, with rather marginal food anyway, and I hope no one here owns Denny's, but anyway, we went in Denny's to change clothes, and as we were, you know, doing our stuff in there, we grabbed things and we came back out, and then we decided we would go to dinner. Now, I believed these ladies when they told me we were going to go to a nice place for dinner. Fool that I was. Here we are, dressed to the teeth, heels, hose, everything. We're crammed into Patty. We went to, and I will have to explain this to you for those of you who don't know LA, we went to Tommy's. Tommy's is the biggest hamburger joint on the West Coast. Every derelict in the world eats at Tommy's. And you don't actually go in Tommy's. There's no inside. You sort of belly up the bar. You know, you just, there's a big wooden thing there, and you order your sandwiches and your hamburgers and your Cokes and fries. But no, ladies, we didn't even belly up the bar at Tommy's. They opened the back of Patty Hearst, took out a card table, 4 chairs, lace tablecloth, candelabra, set it up right by the hearse. Fry 4, brought out the hamburgers, and we all ate there. Now this, the fun really started. People would circle the block, then we'd see them come back. They'd keep circling, you know, and they'd go, no, what? Yeah, they just couldn't reconcile that we were actually sitting there at this card table, dressed to the teeth, candelabra with candles. I loved it. I just loved it. It's my kind of thing. I thought, I want to do this every year if I live over this one, you know. But the interesting thing, and the most fun for me at this place, was to watch the faces of people. I am a people watcher from way back. That's why I love airports. And if I'm stuck in traffic and I think, this is great, I'm just watching people, you know, waiting for the Lord to come. And so there we were, eating. We were watching people, and this one couple, you'll never believe this. I know they were from South Texas. They were standing there, and this woman was with her husband, and he had his hamburger where your chilies running down your chin and down your arms like this. And she looked at him, and she looked at us, and she said, "Fred, just look at them." Fred finally got us into focus, and she said, "Now, Fred, why didn't you do that for my birthday?" Fred, all we did was go bowling. Now, Fred, anybody can go bowling. Why didn't you think of something fun like that, Fred? Now, Fred looked like he just crawled out from under a rock, and he wasn't real sure what day it was, but she just emphasized the fact that, they're having fun and we're not. Have you ever been out to dinner and you think, my table's kind of dull. I wish I was with them over there. Oh, they're over there. Now, that doesn't happen to me much, but, when it does, I think, I wish I was with them and not with us. Excuse me, just get up. Go over there where the fun is, because we want to be where the fun is. We want to be where the action is. After a while, we finished the meal. We put everything back in the back of Patty Hearst. We went to the ballet. We got out of the L.A. ballet, unpretzeled, because we're all wound up in the back of this thing, went to the ballet, and finally it got to be, oh gosh, what time was it? I suppose around 1:45, and they said, "Lucy, we've got one big capper for the evening. We want to take you to the new Bonaventure Hotel downtown." It was brand new, a architecturally beautiful cloverleaf thing where the elevators are on the outside of the building, and we want you to have with us, cake and coffee to round out your 49th year. And I said, "This is great, gals. You gals are wonderful. I mean, if I'm 49, what are you going to do for my 50th? They said, "Well, the place that rents rents Sherman tanks." We thought maybe well, a hearse is hard to park. We finally had to look all around the Bonaventure Hotel to find a spot to park this big thing in. And we saw a spot over here near a construction area. We pulled in and we parked Patty, and we got out like high school girls. "Bye-bye, Patty. See you, Patty." Crossed the street, went into the hotel, had our cake and coffee. We were there about an hour, visiting, laughing, recapping the day, talking about how wonderful it was to be together. And we came back out, and guess what? Girls, they got it. Patty was gone. I mean, I thought it was a joke. I went, oh, they said, "This is serious." I said, "Well, how serious is it?" They said, "That thing cost us $75 to rent." And I said, "Hey, this is serious. We're talking big bucks here." And I said, "Well, the only thing I can think of doing is just going back in, phone the cops, tell them that our hearse has been stolen." We went back in, made the call. "Yes, well, it's kind of hard to explain." "Well, no, there isn't a body in it." "No, it's for a birthday." "No?" "Well, it was." We tried to explain. They said, "We'll come down and get you in a little police cab." So they came down and they picked us up, and we crammed our bodies in this cab, and we went down to the police station. And there behind glass doors was our dear and beloved Patty Hearst, awaiting our arrival. We pooled our money together and had our $42, and we walked in. Sitting there at a desk was a man straight out of a Hemingway novel. Above his head hung a naked light bulb. He had a cigarette in his mouth. He was typing like R2-D2, no blood in the veins. Just... So we walked up to him and we said, "Hey, that's our hearse." He goes, "So?" I said, "So we're ready to pick her up." He said, $42. "You got it." So we paid him, and he said, "Sit over there and I have to type up some papers." I said, "Okay." So we're sitting here. Now the fun started. It hadn't been fun till now. We're sitting here on this bench looking out across the darkened streets of L.A., great big picture window, black as pitch, nobody out there, 2 or 3 in the morning, and all my friends down here waiting for R2-D2 to finish typing this stuff. And I looked out there and I thought, I love this. I absolutely love this moment. This will never happen again as long as I live, probably. And I said, "Gals, think about this. savor this moment. They went. I said, no, seriously, this is a wonderful thing. We are making a memory. This will never happen again as long as you live. You can tell this to your grandkids. We are here because our hearse was picked up, and just think about it. Middle of the night, 4 or 5 Christian women down here in no man's land. We just loved it. We paid our money, we got Patty, and we started home. And all the way home, we talked about savoring our moments. Now, ladies, we want to learn to celebrate life. Let me tell you the best way to do it. You can do it every day of your life. It will not cost you a penny. Celebrate the moment. Celebrate the moment. You know why we don't do that? We're in a hurry. We're in a hurry. See, I'm from Texas. You know that by now because I've said y'all come several times. And in Texas, I love it. We have 2 speeds, slow, stop. And you don't do that in California because they'll kill you. Just run right over you. But I'm telling you, we did it in Texas and I loved it. Everything's laid back. Y'all just come on if y'all want to. If y'all don't want to, be okay. Just real slow, real stoppy. But we don't do that. We just rush. Got to do it. Got to get it done. Got to go now. Got to get it done. Just get on a roll. Because there is so much to do. Sometime, somewhere, somehow, we need to learn to stop and to savor our moments. Not long ago, I was getting ready to go to work, and I could not find my wash rag to take a bath. Do you use them here in Chicago? They're little square. I couldn't find it, terry cloth thing. And I went in the bathroom, and I thought, did you flush it down the toilet, Lucille? Is it in a drawer? Is it under the bed? Where is it? I could not find it. You know where it was? It was in a ball, real hardly rolled up like this, in a ball, on the top shelf in the refrigerator. I thought God must have put that there. I didn't, because I know what I'm doing. We just go so fast. We just race. When I worked for Mobil Oil, I loved working for Mobil. I love working in the business world. I love working in the secular world. And now that I work for Insight for a living, I enjoy that very much too. But for 30 years, I worked for Mobil. And it was just a great time in my life. I love that, I love concrete, so I love that fast pace, that tension that's going on. Loved working for a major oil company. However, lately, I'm glad I don't work for Exxon, I must admit. But we've had our spills too at Mobil. Anyway, while I was working for Mobil, every day I'd read the Wall Street Journal, check on the stock page, and decide whether or not I could live till lunch, Where was the stock at this point? One day I was reading the Wall Street Journal, and I came across the most fabulous quotation. Liked it so much, I wrote to the Journal, and I said, could you send me a copy? And they sent me 12 copies. I'm sure they thought, this is one needy woman. Let's send that woman copies. Let me tell you what it says. You're going to love this. I framed it and put it on my wall at Mobil. It says, get out of that rut. That's the title. Oscar Wilde said, consistency is the last refuge of the unimaginative. So stop getting up at 6:05. Get up at 5:06. Walk a mile at dawn. Find a new way to drive to work. Switch chores with your roommate or your spouse next Saturday. Buy a walk. Study wildflowers. Stay up alone all night. Read to the blind. Start counting brown-eyed blondes. Subscribe to an out-of-town newspaper. Canoe at midnight. That's my favorite. Canoe at midnight. Don't write to your congressman. Take a whole scout troop to see him. He'll remember who you are. Learn to speak Italian. Teach some kid the thing that you do best. Listen to 2 hours of uninterrupted Mozart. Take up aerobic dancing. Leap out of that rut and savor life, because you only pass this way once. Then you know what happens? Patty Hearst. She's right around the door. She's right around the corner. She's just waiting for you to come in her. So I say, before we get there, savor the life that God has given you. It is a gift. And if you are fortunate enough to know the Lord Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, it can be abundant in Him. When was the last time you savored a moment? You just took time with a friend. You had a hot dog on a park bench and just laughed your heads off. Like these gals right down here. Just had fun. When was the last time you savored one of your children? I can say that probably because I don't have children, you see. When was the last time you savored the Word of God and you took a verse and you made it your own? Or a group of verses and you memorized them? Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. You believe in God? Believe also in me. For in my Father's house are many mansions. Were it not so, I would have told you. I'm going to go and prepare a place for you, and if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again to receive you unto myself, that where I am, there you may be also. And I say, all right. That is great. That is great news. That is mine. That is yours. That is for now. You cannot take it to eternity because you got to spend it now. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on thee because he trusteth in thee. Fear thou not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy God. I will strengthen thee, yea, I will help thee. Yea, I will uphold thee with the right hand of my righteousness. Here's one of my favorites. Whatsoever God doeth, it shall be forever. Nothing can be put to it, nor anything taken from it, and God doeth it, that we should revere him. Ecclesiastes. You take a few verses, and as my mother used to say, put them in your pipe and smoke it. Put them in your life and apply it. Hold them to your heart. Live them in your life. And I'll tell you, you'll learn to savor, because you only pass this way one time. A couple of years ago, there was a very interesting article that came out in the LA Times, and since I try to read 3 or 4 newspapers every day, I'm just reading constantly, bus, plane, stop sign, anything. And I was reading this article. I could not believe how it so capsulized my philosophy of life. It's not long. I want to share it with you. It's called, What Are We Waiting For? My brother-in-law opened the bottom drawer of my sister's bureau and lifted out a tissue-wrapped package. This, he said, is not a slip. This is lingerie. He discarded the tissue and handed me the slip. It was exquisite. Silk, handmade, trimmed with a cobweb of lace. The price tag with an astronomical figure on it was still attached. Jan bought this the first time we went to New York, he said, at least 8 or 9 years ago, but she never wore it. She was saving it for that special occasion. Well, he said, I guess this is the occasion. He took the slip from me and put it on the bed with the other clothes that we were taking to the mortician. His hands lingered on the soft material for a moment, and then he slammed the drawer shut and he turned to me and he said, don't ever save anything for a special occasion. Every day that you are alive is a special occasion. I remembered those words through the funeral and the days that followed when I helped him and my niece attend to all the sad chores that follow an unexpected death. I thought about them on the plane returning to California from the Midwestern town where my sister's family lives. I thought about all the things that she hadn't seen or heard or done. I thought about the things that she had done without realizing how special they were. I'm still thinking about his words, and they've changed my life. I'm reading more and dusting less. I'm sitting on the deck admiring the view without fussing about all those weeds in the garden. I'm spending more time with my family and friends and less time in committee meetings. Whenever possible, life should be a pattern of experience to savor, not endure. I'm trying to recognize these moments now and cherish them. I'm not saving anything. We use our good china and crystal for every special event, such as losing a pound. And we all said amen. Getting the sink unstopped. The first camellia blossom. I wear my good blazer to the market if I feel like it, because my theory is if I look prosperous, I can shell out $28.49 for one small bag of groceries without wincing. I'm not saving my good perfume for special parties because clerks in hardware stores and tellers in banks have noses that function as well as my party-going friends. Someday, and one of these days, they're just losing their grip in my vocabulary. If it's worth seeing, hearing, doing, I want to see and hear and do it now. I'm not sure what my sister would have done had she known that she wouldn't be here for the tomorrow we all take for granted. I think she would have called a few family members and a few close friends. She might have called a few former friends to apologize and mend fences for past squabbles. I like to think she would have gone out for a Chinese dinner, her favorite food. I'm guessing. I'll never know. It's those little things left undone that would make me angry if I knew that my hours were limited. Angry because I put off seeing good friends whom I was going to get in touch with someday. Angry because I hadn't written certain letters that I intended to write one of these days. Angry and sorry that I didn't tell my husband and daughter often enough how much I truly love them. I'm trying very hard not to put off or hold back or save anything that would add laughter and luster to our lives. And every morning when I open my eyes, I say to myself, this is special. Does that scratch you where you itch? Does me too. It does me too. We need desperately, ladies, to find a way to savor life, our friends, our family, our co-workers, our Lord. It is imperative to celebrating the joy of living. The second ingredient or suggestion that I would make for you in celebrating life would be, you're not going to want to hear this, so hold on to your chairs. Take a risk. 3 words. Take a risk. You know why we don't like that? It's risky. You know what I mean? Well, what if I bomb? I mean, you know, what if I really blow it? What'll they think? I call them the royal they. I don't know who they is. I don't know who they is. They are they up there in the sky. The royal they looking down at us saying, who are they? We don't know who they are, but they govern our lives. Why? What will they think? What will they do? How will they feel? How will they respond? Pogo told us who they are. Pogo says, I haven't seen they, but they is the enemy and they is us. Isn't that the truth? We think, gosh, if I do this, what'll they do to me? You know what they'll do? They'll think, boy, I wish I'd have thought of that first. Because we want to be where the action is. We want to be where the fun starts. My favorite thing in life is to learn something new while having a good time. Isn't that yours? Isn't that the secret of teaching? I tell you, you make your class exciting. You give people something new and you have them have a good time and they will line up at your door. And that is the secret to Christianity. The joy of living while learning something new every day about Jesus Christ so that we can become, as Job says, intimately acquainted with him. But we don't like risks because they hang us out on a limb. And we have to trust, and we just don't like to trust. Because what if? It's very hard. Let me tell you something, ladies. The reason I know about this stuff is I've been through every bit of it. I'm going to talk more about that this afternoon. The most interesting people I have ever known in life were the risk takers. And I would venture to say that you like to be around risk takers. Didn't you want to be in school the day that somebody acted up? I mean, you didn't want to do it, but you want to watch, you know? Y'all act up. Don't act up till I get there. Don't act up while I'm gone. You know, when I was singing in the opera, I sang with Maria Callas, a wonderful privilege. She was an electrifying woman on stage, and I would often take friends and family with me to rehearsals when she would be there, and they'd say, Lucy, take us the night that Maria has a fit. And I'd say, well, child, I can't predict her fits, my soul. But we want to be there. We want to see what people will do. We want to see how they will react. We want to see how far they will go. But let me tell you one step better. You be the risk taker. You do the doing. You reach out. And then the fun starts. When I decided to move to the West Coast, I took probably one of the greatest risks of my life. 1974. All of my life I had lived in Texas. I love Texas. I love the people of Texas. But I thought, oh, I want to do something different. I'd been singing professionally for 15 years, and I thought I want to do something different even in that arena. And I was getting kind of bored, and I don't like to be bored. Do you like to be bored? I can't bear to be bored. I mean, I think boring people should be lined up and shot. I say that lovingly. I mean, if I bore you, shoot me. Put me out of my misery and you out of yours. And I've never understood boredom. I can understand loneliness, but I cannot understand boredom. I mean, you know, just ho-hum. With all there is to see and do and think and feel and be and places to go, how can people be bored? I understand loneliness. That's the human dilemma. We can be lonely whether we're married or single. We can be lonely whether we're black or white. We can be lonely whether we're rich or poor, old or young, because that's the human dilemma. But boredom? With all there is in today's world? Let me just tell you an aside here. My dearest friend, Marilyn Meeberg, is a wonderful gal, wonderful speaker. She's written a great book called Choosing the Amusing. It's the idea of laughter healing our souls, our bodies, and so forth. I met her shortly after I moved to the West Coast. She's just such a character. And one day I was talking to her about loneliness. Understand, I was younger then and thought, you know, loneliness was only with singles. And I said, Marilyn, she's married to a wonderful guy and has 2 children. I said, Marilyn, you don't know what loneliness is because you're married. She said, Lucy, marriage does not preclude loneliness. And you know, I was sitting there thinking, now what does preclude mean? I know. She thinks I'm smart. I got to keep up here. You know, I was racking my brain. I thought preclude. And she's saying to me, you know, marriage does not preclude loneliness. I'm going, yeah. It's kind of like a Woody Allen movie. Underneath said, what does preclude mean? You know. Yeah, right. I said, Meryl, I'm sorry, Mayor, but what does preclude mean? I'm sorry you've lost me. I want to keep up, but you know what she said? She said, I don't know, but Rachmaninoff wrote one. I thought, my kind of woman. And you know what? I wasn't even lonely anymore. My spirit just went, you know. But anyway, I was getting kind of bored and so forth. So I thought, well, I'm going to move to the West Coast. I'm going to check out things. And I was working for Mobile, and I called to the West Coast, and I thought, I'm going to see if they have a job for me on the West Coast. That'll be fun. That'll jazz up my life. Boy, that'll keep it. And you know, I am so idealistic. Not as much as I was at the age of 12, but close. And you know, I always think, maybe you're like this, I always think utopia is over that hill. So you climb the hill, and you get to the brink of it, and you look, and you don't see anything. Wrong hill. So you come back down. Go to the next, well, utopia's over that hill. So you go up to that hill, and you look over, it isn't there, so you come back down. So you'd spend your whole life, you know, just going up these hills, waiting for utopia. Idealistic. And I think, nobody's going to do me in because I wouldn't do them in. And then you know what? They do me in, and I think, they did me in? How could they do that? I wouldn't do that to them. Idealistic, optimistic. So that's the way I was about moving to the Holy Land, I called it. Moving to the West Coast. I called my brother Chuck, and I said, I call him Babe, or when I'm really mad at him, call him Reverend Babe. So perhaps you know of Insight for Living. Are any of you familiar with Insight for Living? Wonderful. Thank you. Anyway, I called Babe and I said, Babe, I'm thinking of moving to the West Coast. He said, oh, sis, that'd be great. My mother had gone on to be with the Lord. We have an older brother who is a missionary in Argentina, has been there 30 years. My father was living on the West Coast with my brother, and I thought, I'm going to go out there too. That's where the action is. I'm going to go have some fun, you know. And I told him I was thinking of moving out there, and he said, that'd be great, sis. If you hurry, there's room for you, you know. If you come before lunch, there's a place. I was real excited, boy, and I just could hardly wait. I had my dreams, you see, my fantasies. I could see the headlines, big, black, bold letters. LA Times says, Swindoll replaces Streisand. Oh, I was so excited. And I just could hardly wait. And it took me a month to say goodbye. I had breakfast, lunches, dinners, midnight. You know, wherever there was food, I was there. Celebrating and just saying goodbye to all my wonderful friends, cutting my umbilical cord with Texas and saying, boy, I'm going to have, if I think there's fun here, it's going to be great on the West Coast. It's going to be wonderful. All my fantasies are going to come to fruition on the West Coast. Oh, brother, don't we learn the hard way? I tell you. So I said to Babe, Babe, why don't you come back and ride with me to the West Coast? This was before he became the busiest man in America, and he said, fine. He said, I'll come back, and we'll come out in your car. And I had packed all my stuff and sent it out, and he came, and we got in my car, and we started out. We had a great time. I adore this man. We talked and yacked, and when we get in the car, it's just nonstop. We are like Siamese twins, you know. Blah, 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 blah. And I was telling all these things I'm going to do. Babe, I'm going to go to the Hollywood Bowl every night. I'm going to be in a Bible class. And I'm going to be in your church. And he said, sis, you're going to need 9 lives to do all that. I said, watch my dust. Huh? Watch my dust. I was so excited. I said, babe, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And he said, well, I don't know if you're going to live that long. Just watch. We solved all the world's problems coming across those states, you know. Only thing, the world wasn't listening. We had sweet fellowship, prayed together every day, talked about all the things we wanted to accomplish. It was wonderful. First night, we were spending the night out on the way across from Texas to California. Never forget, a hilarious thing happened. We were sleeping in the same room. Babe was in this bed, and I was sleeping in this bed. And I'm a very early riser. As I told you, I was up at 2:30 looking at the streets of Chicago. And I looked at my watch lying there in bed, and I thought, good night, it's 3 o'clock. We got to go. Why hadn't he? And I could hear this. I thought, why doesn't he know we got to hit the road, Jack? I mean, we got to go. And I thought, well, the only thing to do is just tell him it's time, you know. And I said, psst, babe, hey, babe. Hey, babe, we got to go. It's 3. We got to go. You may quote me on this. This is what he does. This arm comes out from under the covers. Now, he's blind as a bat, you know. He goes... You know what he said? He said, God is not up. I said, yes, he is. You haul buns. We're out of... Oh, we got in the car, took off, you know, all these things. Babe, I'm going to do this. I'm sure the guy probably wears earplugs by now, you know. So we got to the West Coast. I went into this darling little apartment, and I set it all up, and the sea was 45 minutes from to the south, and the mountains were 45 minutes to the north. And one morning I woke up, and there was a mountain there. You know, hadn't been there for 2 months, but one morning, plop, it was there. I thought, that was great. God did that last night, you know. And I just loved it. And I had this cute little apartment, and I was calling everybody, and I was riding back home. You'd pass cars on the freeway, and one had snow skis going this way, and one had water skis going this way, and they were just, you know, there's the mountains, the seas, and the desert, the Holy Land. And I was thinking, oh, and I learned how to spell, and I wrote back home, and I told them, you ought to be here. This is great. I took a risk. This is wonderful. After I'd been there for a couple of weeks settling in, I had the first glitch in my dream. I discovered the LA freeways. And I'm not saying they're slow, but one morning on the way to work, I did my nails. And my entire prayer life is conducted on the freeway for any number of reasons. I got to work, and you know, the freeways didn't live up to my dream, but I thought, well, that's just one little thing. It's not too bad. I got to work, and the people that just weren't Texan, you know, they worked. And it wasn't that I minded working. But there wasn't any happiness. You know, they were real serious, and they didn't have pictures on their desk, and they didn't have birthdays, they didn't have donuts, they didn't have coffee breaks, all the vital things for living. They just sort of moved their tail, you know, they just sort of worked real hard, and I had to kind of get into that, and a couple months passed, and I thought, this isn't quite, you know, the feeling, this isn't quite living up to what I had expected. But, you know, Lord, it's okay now. But later, Lord, it isn't going to be okay. And I would like you to change it now. And I began to have very serious prayer times with the Lord, and I began to make friends there, and I would talk to them, and they said, well, just kind of live for the weekend. Live for the weekend. And I said, well, you know, that just isn't good enough for me. I want to live for every minute. I got to have some joy here. Have you ever done something before the Lord, and you said, you know, Lord, I'm going to take this risk, and you're prompting me to do this, but you want to have joy. You want to have even more than joy. You want happiness. Joy is an inner thing. Happiness, you know, it comes many times from our circumstances. We want both. We did our part. You do your part. A year passed. I was really low. Real disappointed. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and there was a digital clock by my bed. I don't like digital clocks because it has all those numbers. I just wish it'd say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, every hour. But 1:32, I thought, now what does that mean? And then I think, oh, I got to hurry up and sleep. That means I got 3:36 more hours to sleep. Heck, I don't know, you know. And then I'd wake up again, it'd be 2:01. I think, oh. And then I got to hurry up and sleep so I can get up at 5:30. No, I wake up again, it'd be 3:06. And I was just looking like a zombie because I felt like a zombie, because I was a zombie. And I'd go to work zombie-like, and a year and a half passed, and I thought, I've had it. I'm fed up with this. And I would pray to the Lord, and I said, Lord, I really do want to get serious now. I've been here a year and a half, and things aren't living up to my dream. I don't have to replace Streisand. I'll give that up. But I at least want happiness. I want something that's going to fill my life with your joy, I've got these plans, Lord. 2 years passed. I was rock bottom. I like to tell people I could have put on a silk hat and walked under a duck with room to spare. That's low. I was really low. And I had had it. I had had it with me. I had had it with California. I had had it with Mobile. I had had it with God. I'd had it. I was fed up because it wasn't what I wanted it to be. The most magnificent thing happened. Hang on. I was driving home from work one day, crying for the umpteenth time, tears coming down like crocodile tears. I was at the corner of Beach and Malvern, ready to make a left. And I was praying to the Lord to beat the band. And when I pray to the Lord, sometimes I get demonstrative. We're a very demonstrative family. And Lord, I'm sitting there in my car, and I'm saying, Lord, and this guy, let me tell you, this guy pulls, I'm going to turn left. This guy pulls up, and he's going to go straight. And I'm going on, I said, Lord, I have just had it with life. And this guy, now he's going, you don't want to go, but you don't want to, for you guys, you don't want to just gape, but you want to think, well, what's wrong with that soul over there, And I said, Lord, I've just had it. I have had it with me. I have had it with California. And Lord, whatever you're going to do, do it now. I mean, hit me with a brick bat. Kill me. Take my life, but change it. Change it now. And I've had it with this, and I've had it with you. And I went, and I've had it with you. And he goes, I said, yeah, you. And you know what? When that light changed, he is still on his way to Mexico. I mean, oh, you're just so mad. Sometimes you're just so mad you just want to kick the tires, you know. I just had it with everything, you know. I was fed up. I was fed up with my life. Have you ever been like that? Just rock bottom. You said, I don't care if the Lord takes me, if he takes my life. I have had it so much, just takes me because I am no good as it is because I am miserable. I chose misery. And when I said change it, he did. Oh, brother, did he? I'm sitting there, you know, tears, and this guy's on his way to Mexico. I'm waiting at the world's longest light to change. Ladies, it was almost as though it was a disembodied oracle from God. And I don't believe in dreams and visions and these things. I believe that our life is shaped by the finished Word of God, canon of Scripture, complete. And in that we have our teaching, the greatest teaching in the world, the only teaching of its deepest value. But it was as though almost this voice came to me out of nowhere, and the voice said, Lucy, Lucy, honey. See, I knew it was God because he was Southern. Lucy, honey. And I mean, I did like this. I went, I thought someone was in the back seat. And I went, yeah. This voice said, Lucy, I want to tell you something, and I want you to get it straight. Okay? And I said, okay. Lucy, I am not a God of dreams. I am not a God of fantasies. I am a God of reality. I want to meet you in your reality. And I said, well, why didn't you just tell me? He said, I've been doing that. I've been doing it for the freeways. I've been doing it with the digital clock. I've been doing it with no coffee breaks. I've been telling you, this is reality. I'm going to meet you there. And then as though it was, and if you don't get anything else out of this speech, get this. It was as though it was emblazoned across the windshield, these words, rarely does reality live up to your dreams. Ladies, do not hold out for your fantasy. We are in reality, and God is just tapping his foot to meet us in our reality. He just tapped his foot and waited for me to clean up my act. I mean, it was like a pack just dropped off my back. I was so thrilled. I did a wheelie you can't believe. You know, I turned that corner, pulled in my house. Next day, I went to work, and you know what? Wasn't a bit different. But I was. I saw it with different eyes, praise God. Then I saw it as a challenge. I saw it as reality. I saw it for what it was, and that God was going to use me there. And I didn't have to have everything the way I wanted it. 2 weeks later, I went into the guy who was in charge of public relations, and I said, let me ask you something. I said, can I be very candid with you? And he said, please do. And I said, can I be very honest? And he said, sure, tell me, what's on your mind? I said, you know, this place is a dump. You know what he said? He said, could you close the door? Sure will. Close that door. He said, tell me. I said, you know, I'm just not used to feeling my spirit in prison. I am a Christian. I want to live like a Christian, and I just can't live like this. I said, would you investigate the possibility, even in its slightest, for me to have a transfer? He said, I sure will. 3 weeks later, he called me in his office and he said, Lucy, I think I have something for you. I mean, I was there faster than a speeding bullet. Closed that door and he said, I think I got a job for you. A woman's never done it with mobile, but he said, I want you to be a right-of-way agent. I said, great! He said, do you know what one is? I said, no! I mean, he could have said, you're going to the moon on roller skates. And I'd have said, I'm your woman. He said, well, you got to go back to school. And I said, great. I love school. He said, you'll have to attend a lot of night meetings. No problem. I can do that. He said, you have to work with a lot of city councils. Great, I can do that. Have to meet a lot of people. I can do that. It's like that thing in Chorus Line. I can do that. Well, I can do that. I can do that. Everything he named, I thought, God is in this. The Lord Jesus is in this. I can do this. And you know, without that kind of faith, it is impossible to please him. However a man thinketh in his heart, what? You got it. So is he. And I thought, I can do that. If he tells me I'm going to have to run this company, I'm going to say, I can do that. I took that job. I had it 7 years. There was not, here's the key, there was not a day in the 7 years that I did not use what I learned in the 2 years I hated. While I was in the valley, while I was living in the valley, my boss retired. I was promoted to his position, and I was the first executive woman on the West Coast with mobile. And I say that humbly because God did it, because I did that. 3 words: took a risk. It's the hardest thing in the world, ladies. There was not a day where I thought, I'm not going to make this, you know, I'm just not going to make this. But we do make it because we have the Lord Jesus. Why do we live in the valley when we are made for the heights? Not only do we live in the valley, I built a mansion in the valley. We're supposed to have a pup tent. I built a mansion, had a swimming pool and fence around it, have people over for barbecue. Y'all come on over and enjoy my misery. And God says, blow up that mansion and out of here, honey, because I've made you for the heights. And you can live the heights right where you are, because it is the way you view your circumstances. And then finally, and with this I must close, savor the moments, take a risk, be intentionally involved. Be intentionally involved. Don't let life just happen to you. You happen to it. Take it by the tail and run. Now that I'm an old woman, I've finally figured out how not to get old. It's too late, but let me tell you, you're young. It's 2 words. Say yes. That's it. Say yes. But we don't like to say yes because we're afraid. And somebody says, Lucy, we want you to come to dinner. And, you know, we know you don't have a partner. And I say, oh, no, you know, I'm kind of shy with people. I really don't want to go. And so I say no, and they kind of back off, and I kind of back off. And then they say, hey, we've got a great class at church. We want you to teach. Oh, no, teach? You crazy? I can't teach. I've never taught in my life. How could I ever teach? So we say no, and they back off, and we back off. And they say, we want you to have a date with Tom Selleck. And, no, that was just teasing. And they say all these things, and we back off, and they back off, and then we sit way back there, sitting, soaking, souring, thinking, nobody loves me. And we brought it on ourselves because of our own attitude that we cannot do it because we have not depended upon the Lord Jesus Christ. Say yes. I close with this illustration. When we were growing up in my nucleus family, my grandfather had a wonderful little bay cottage on the Karankawa Bay in South Texas. And we would spend my father's vacation time of 2 weeks or 3 weeks there as a family. Had great times together. My older brother, my younger brother, my parents, and myself. And we all loved to fish except my older brother. It literally bored him into a coma. He could not stand fishing. He had a mind that was real fast. He is Chuck and me put together and multiplied by 5,000. So he had this mind. So he would take his chemistry set on the boat, and on the bow of the boat, he would make things. And you'd see this smoke rise, and you'd hear this boop, 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 boop. And I'd think, he is going to blow our ship out of the water. Has he no brains? You know. And we were all fishing like mad and trying to catch a mess of fish, as my grandfather used to say. And I'd say, Orville, don't make that noise. You're scaring the fish away. And he'd say, oh, shut up. And I'd say, oh, a normal Christian family. We would catch our fish. We would bring the fish home. Mother would cook lunch. We'd have lunch. We'd all lie down and take a nap. When everybody was in their bed taking a nap, Babe and I would sneak off to the pier for our one last session of fishing. Now, we never really caught anything. It was kind of a dumpy little pier, but we would just go equipped. I mean, we'd have on cut-off jeans and old ratty tennis shoes, and we'd have, what are those things that you sit on? Not chairs, but anyway, we had those. And we'd have Snicker bars and all the important things of life, the bait bucket, camp stools. And we would have bait bucket and our poles and everything, and we'd start out. Normal kids on a holiday. And when we'd get to the pier, the interesting thing was, it was what we saw on the pier. There was a man down there named Mr. Kutash. My father used to say, Kutash is an odd duck. I'd say, Daddy, you ain't seen nothing. Then I'd tell him the latest thing Kutash had done, and he really was weird. Kutash, we would position ourselves so that we could watch him, and with the slightest wobble of his cork, it was World War III. It'd go bloop, and he'd go, whoa, he'd wheel the line in, it'd go all around in the air and under the pier and around the boathouse, and one time with a shrimp on the hook, it hooked in my nose. It just, with a shrimp hanging here. Well, you know what? We named that Giving It the Kutash. Give it the Kutash. And if our end of the pier became very, very boring, and we just couldn't stand, I'd say to Babe, give it the Kutash. She'd say, well, sis, there's nothing there. There's the cork hadn't moved. I said, just let the fish know you're here. Just give it the Kutash. Just go ahead. And he'd go, okay. Well, then he'd wheel the line in and it'd go on. Giving it the Kutash. And now 100 years removed from that, when I look back upon it with such fond reflection as we do the good old days, and I know that Chuck is going through something that is very difficult. And I know he just wants to throw in the towel. And I know he just wants to quit, like we all do. And I know him so well. I'll see him in the hallway at church or something. I'll nudge him in the ribs and I'll say, Babe, give it the Kutash. You know what that means? Give it all you've got. You know why? This is the best part. That's all you've got. And it is all you need. God, breath, life. That's all you need. Life, breath, God. And you cannot lose. It is impossible. It may feel like a mistake, but it is God bringing you to maturity. God's in the business of two things. Bringing those who do not know Him to a place of justification where they put their faith in Him. That happens like that at a moment of time when we put our faith in Him. And bringing the rest of us to a place of maturity, and that'll take till you kick the bucket. That'll take until we go to glory. I like it that it never ends. We can always grow. Every day is different. Savor. Take a risk. Say yes. I'll leave you with this quotation. It's from my favorite author, Herman Hesse. He says, life passes like a flash of lightning whose blaze barely lasts long enough to see, while the earth and the sky stand still forever. How swiftly changing time flies across man's face. Oh, you who sit over your full cup and do not drink, tell me, for whom are you still waiting? Don't wait, ladies. Patty Hearst is right out the door. Thank you.